Hello, my name is Laleh Nourian, a second-year PhD student from Rochester Institute of Technology. I'm presenting a paper titled as Understanding Discussions Around Culture within courses covering topics on accessibility and disability at U.S. universities, on behalf of my co-authors, Dr. Kristen, Shinohara, and Dr. Garreth, Tigwell. Our work is on accessibility from a new lens, which focuses on the impact of cultural differences in accessible design. Prior work has found that culture can influence design and interaction preferences. And in this work, we propose that accessibility, as a component of design, can be also influenced by cultural differences. We explored whether and how the area of accessibility education acknowledges and considers the importance of culture in accessibility teaching. What we exactly mean by culture in our work is the social norms, habits, and preferences in a society that can be different from another society at the country level, such as the language that the majority of people in a society speak. What motivated us to explore the impact of cultural differences on accessible design is previous work demonstrating the impact that culture can have on design decisions and components, such as design aesthetics like color selection, design layouts, or interaction behaviors. As an example, I have two screenshots on my screen, Yahoo's US and Japanese website homepages. The US version follows a minimal and flat design trend with more images and fewer menu items, while the Japanese version includes more text and links. These intentional differences cater to the diverse user bases around the world and optimize the user experience for different cultures. After exploring previous studies, we realized that none of them have focused on accessibility of design and the impact that different cultural backgrounds might have on that. When we explored deeper, we saw that research has found that the majority of research findings at the intersection of disability and technology are from the global north. This gap suggests a lack of support for international designers, which might lead to conflicts when using the global north-based accessibility resources. Thus, accessible design practices need to be sensitive to cultural differences. In addition, research has shown that designers need to have sufficient knowledge of disability for accessible design, and that must be achieved by integrating disability studies into the accessibility research and education. Since cultural topics are essential in disability studies, we believe that when integrating disability studies into accessibility, topics on culture should also be considered in accessibility too. So in this work, we focus on education, which is essential for training designers with sufficient knowledge of accessibility. Previous research on accessibility teaching has been mainly explored within computing and technical courses, and none has focused on culture. Besides technical courses, we decided to explore non-technical courses as well, mainly because they include topics on culture when teaching disability topics. So we wanted to know whether there are potential approaches that we can adopt from non-technical courses into our technical courses. By technical courses, we mean courses that primarily focus on the design and implementation of digital services, such as HCI or software design courses. And by non-technical courses, we mean the ones that are primarily focusing on theoretical knowledge about disability and do not mainly include technology design, like disability studies courses. So we tried to answer three following research questions. What cultural topics are being discussed in technical and non-technical courses that teach accessibility and disability topics? How those topics are being taught, and what do the students think about the incorporation of topics on culture when teaching accessibility and disability topics? We ran an online survey and interviews within students in the U.S. institutions because of the high diversity of cultural backgrounds in the U.S. and the fact that for now we are mostly familiar with the course structure inside the U.S. Our survey consisted of 53 questions, both open and closed-ended. We received a total of 72 valid survey responses and coded the open-ended questions. We had 14 interview participants, and our interviews were semi-structured, which were in 3 parts. We had an introduction with each participant in the first part. In the second part, we asked questions about their courses and the topics on culture in their courses. And finally, we asked for students' insights about the incorporation of topics on culture in accessibility and their suggestions for improving that. Our interview participants were students from a multitude of countries that broadly cover 3 continents: North America, Africa, and South Asia. Also from different regions of the US and diverse institution types such as public, private, R1 or R2 institutions. We identified 4 themes following Brown and Clark's reflexive thematic analysis approach. The themes show the topics that were taught in courses, which are as follows. First, most non-technical courses had discussions on how disabled people are represented and supported in different countries. Second, we found that the non-technical courses discussed the interconnections between technology and society, such as how people behave around technology or how societies adapt to technology. Third, both courses had discussions about the influence of socio-cultural differences in design, such as language in design, choice of food in food app design, religion in design, or race in design. And finally, we found that both courses had some discussions around accessibility in different geographic locations, such as accessibility policies in different countries. For more detailed information, please read the paper as you can find more interesting insights. We also found that the most common way to teach topics on culture was lectures and class activities, such as class discussions, student projects, and reading sessions in both technical and non-technical courses. Finally, we collected our participants' suggestions for improving topics on culture in accessibility teaching. Some students suggested that the topics on culture and disability must be incorporated when designing the course syllabus. Secondly, some students suggested that courses should have students or instructors from different cultures or with different disability types. Plus, some recommended choosing a specific culture to focus on in the courses. Next, some students thought it is necessary to teach foundations of accessibility in all design courses. And finally, some like to have class activities about cultural differences. So we saw that non-technical courses discussed topics on culture at deeper levels, in which they usually provided an opportunity for students to understand the foundations of disability and cross-cultural aspects of disability. For example, non-technical courses had discussions on how students perceive and define disability and how disability is viewed in their country. It is shown in previous studies that theoretical foundations in design courses are beneficial. So building on our findings and previous studies, we conclude that technical courses could benefit from approaches in non-technical courses, which are the theoretical foundations, to help with educating more culturally informed designers. At the end of our paper, we make recommendations on incorporating topics on culture in accessibility teaching, such as seeking feedback from disabled people with different cultural backgrounds in the course devising procedure, or integrating topics on culture in all design courses that is specifically focused on accessible design by having instructors or invited speakers from different cultures and disability types. For more info about our recommendations, please read our paper. As our future work, we will investigate accessibility courses beyond the US, mainly in the countries from the global south. We also plan to conduct our study with instructors to have their point of view too. For more detailed information, please read our paper, and thank you so much for your time.